Good afternoon and welcome to the Saints Insider postgame show. I am Zach Ewing, and the New Orleans Saints have lost another game today, 26-14 to the Chicago Bears. And I don't know, I guess this one was a little bit different. It's not quite same old. Today, the Saints' biggest problem was turnovers. They had 4 of them, all of them by quarterback Spencer Rattler. 3 interceptions and a lost fumble. That is not to say this game was all on him. There was some quite poor offensive line play. There was some quite poor defense, particularly against the run. But yeah, as we kind of get your comments rolling in here, I would say Stephon, the quarterback, was not even fine today. 4 turnovers is not going to get it done in the NFL most days. We saw that a couple of weeks ago when the Saints won by, I believe, this exact same score, 26-14, in beating the New York Giants because the Giants turned the ball over 5 times. Well, today, the Saints turned the ball over 4 times, and the Bears win the game 26-14. Again, look, the first 29 minutes of this game, the Saints were as thoroughly outplayed as you can be and still kind of sort of be in the game. It was 20-0 Bears at the time. They had like a 200 and some to, 32 edge in total yards. Spencer Rattler had 4 passing yards at the time. And then the Saints actually showed some life. They had a really nice drive in the final minute right before halftime. Rattler goes deep for Olave. Then he hits Olave for a touchdown. Then he hit Chris Olave for another touchdown on the Saints' first drive of the second half. And like all of a sudden we have a 20-14 ball game. And it was like, wow, is this really going to happen? And the Saints played pretty good red zone defense. I don't think they played good defense overall, but they played pretty good red zone defense and stopped the Bears to a field goal on the next drive. And in fact, it could have been even better than that. If the referees had allowed the play to go, the Bears went for it on 4th and goal and fumbled the snap, but they stopped the play because it was a false start. And so the Bears end up taking the 5-yard penalty and being able to kick a field goal there to make it a 2-possession game. Saints had a couple of different chances down 23-14 to get even closer. Ultimately could not do it. And this team's just not good enough in the clutch. They don't make these moments. Stephon, you're right. It was 4 yards for the Saints and 4 passing yards for the Saints. They had more than that if you included some runs, and 4 drives with points for the Bears at the time, 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Northern Saint, you gotta stop with the JR thing, man. It's getting old. I do think trading Olave is a possibility. I don't know that. You're not that funny with all the nicknames, man. Especially when you type it in as RJ. Over 200 yards rushing. Only a raving idiot. I'm Northern Saint. You're gonna have to take a timeout, man. The Saints did not play well. It was really dreary for the first half. Saints kind of made a game of it and kept things interesting until the 4th quarter. Really, I really thought the Saints still had a chance in this game until the point when the lateral from Taysom Hill to Alvin Kamara was overturned. And that was a really, really close play. And I think it might have been backward by like 6 inches, but I don't really understand how the referees overturned it after calling it a lateral on the field, because there was no look on that replay where you could sit there and say, oh yeah, it was close, but it was backward. Like there was none of that. It was like, I think it's backward, but if you called it forwards, I think it was forward, but if you call it backward on the field, I don't see how you can change that. And the referees did change it. That would have converted a 3rd and 20 for the Saints. It was still 23-14 at that time, I believe. And just, took all of the wind out of the Saints' sails. At that point, it was 23-14. There was still 11 minutes left. That would have given the Saints a first down at the Bears 42. If you even get one more first down, you've probably got a field goal. Although with Blake Grupe, who knows if you've got a field goal? But even a field goal there makes it a 6-point game and gives you a chance. And instead, Saints had to punt. And DeAndre Swift takes the first snap on the next drive for 23 yards. There was a couple points in this that we talk about the Saints run defense, where it was like they just felt like, what's even the point? It felt a little bit like last year did. And that was one of them. DeAndre Swift goes straight up the gut for 23 yards. Then Caleb Williams made a really nice play, flipping the ball to DeAndre Swift for a 14-yard gain. And just like that, the Bears were in field goal range. They ended up making it 26-14, and the Saints never really threatened again. Spencer Rattler did throw his final interception on the next drive. I guess they threatened. They had gotten down to the Chicago 26. You score a touchdown there, makes it 26-21 with 4 minutes left, and the Bears have to sweat it out. You have, with a stop, you could still be in the game. So yeah, it was ugly. Spencer Rattler has gotten away with a lot of stuff the first 6 weeks. We talk about how he's played better than last year, and I truly believe he has. But I also think he's only had the one turnover through 6 games. If you look at Pro Football Focus, he had 9 turnover-worthy plays, although he did not have any the last 2 weeks. And so that just tells you, and I know PFF is not perfect, and that a lot of people kind of roll their eyes when you bring up PFF. But I do think it gives you kind of a glimpse of, okay, what's there that maybe we're not seeing. And I think that was part of it, is that Spencer Rattler had been fairly lucky not to have more turnovers. And today that just came home to roost. Starting on the Saints' first drive, he lost a fumble, set up a Bears field goal. Then, then he just throws some interceptions. And I can't really look at any of the interceptions and say, oh, that was unlucky. There was one that was tipped up, but it was a bad pass that could have been picked off by the guy who tipped it up. There was a bad overthrow for Shaheed that Kevin Byard collected in deep. And then I can't even remember what the first interception was like, but I don't think any of them were very good throws. So I don't know. Brian says stop with all the Rattler love. There's not much Rattler love left, at least not in these woods. A lot of people saying like Marlowe, let's see what Tyler does. The time is coming. I don't know if it's going to be next week. It is the last chance to do it in a home game, if that matters to the Saints. It's the last chance for them to do it in a home game for 3 weeks. They have Tampa Bay at home next week. Then there'll be road game, bye week. And then they come back home for the Falcons in really late November. That would be November the 23rd. Because you have Bucs at home, then at Rams, at Panthers, bye week on the 16th. And then, so if you don't do it next week, if it's important to do it at home, I don't know if it is. I think the week after next at the Rams, that's a tough spot because Rams pass rush is really good. I don't know if that's the spot to put Tyler Shuck in. Maybe the following week at Carolina, November the 9th. Carolina's looked good. They have a winning record, but I don't think their defense is particularly scary. So that's an opportunity maybe to get Shuck in there. It could be next week. I think it's coming. I mean, again, Rattler, I don't think he's actually been as bad as some people thought he would be, even with today included. His numbers are okay. He threw 2 touchdowns, 3 picks today. I think he's now got, 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions through 7 games. It's not great, but it's not like abysmal. He's not out there losing you the game every single week like maybe he did today. But I do, we've had this conversation 100 times. At some point, you got to see what there is. Jeff Duncan is on his way. He is going to stop in and talk to us, and then later we'll get Rod Walker, Matthew Paris, Luke Johnson live from Soldier Field, and they will give us their thoughts. In fact, Jeff is here now. And here he is, Jeff Duncan. How are you after watching just another scintillating New Orleans Saints performance?
Yeah, it was a rough one today, Zach. I had a feeling it might. I think I got this one right in my predictions for once.
You said 24-16. It was 26. You said 24-16. It was 26-14. So very close.
Yeah, it just snowballed on them after that first turnover. It's a common theme that we've seen throughout the season. I know they got the 3-and-out on the first start, but after that, it was all Chicago, 20-0 lead in the second quarter, and it was pretty much over by then. I know they made a little bit of a comeback in the middle of that game, but you could kind of sense that Chicago had that game in control. And it was a rough day for Spencer Rattler. You came into this game knowing you couldn't turn the ball over, and he ends up with 4 turnovers, a fumble, and 3 interceptions, protection issues across the board, just a lot of things, Zach, that were not good. It actually could have been a lot worse. The Bears had 10 penalties and kind of kept them in the game a little bit with some of their sloppy play, with center exchanges down in the tight red zone a couple times that short-circuited maybe touchdown drives. So this was a difficult one, and it doesn't get any easier, right? You come back home and play the Bucs, and then you have to go to the Rams, two potential Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to get any easier. I think the losses are going to start to pile up a little bit, and the conversation has to shift at some point, right? Like we need to talk. I know we continually ask the question, when is Tyler Shuck going to make his debut? After a day like today, I think that chatter only increases with Rattler, finally kind of hitting the turnover bug.
Yeah, I was a little worried about him this week because so much hype started going to Spencer Rattler, and I think it was a little bit too much too soon. He didn't get a lot of help today. The running game was atrocious, the worst running game they've had all year. It's a little bit of a bad trend, Zach. I mean, they've really, since that Buffalo game, really failed to generate much on the ground. You got everybody healthy right now. I mean, everyone on the team, I know Kendre Miller went out, but for the most part, the whole offensive line's been intact. The receivers have been healthy. The tight ends are all back, and you're still not getting much out of your offense. So I think at some point, when you're 1-12 as a starter, at some point, those wins and losses do matter. And at some point, I think you have to see what Tyler Shuck has got. You're playing rookies at other positions a lot. We saw Devin Neal come in today as the backup running back when Kendre Miller went out. I think at some point certainly begs the question of, when do you get a chance to see what you have in Tyler Shuck?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to happen at some point. The bye week is coming. I just don't know. The Bucs defense has been pretty good. So has the Rams. Just what spot do you want to drop him into? And as Kim points out, Eric McCoy left the game injured late. So we haven't talked about that yet, but that's not a good thing if you want to bring in a quarterback for his first career start. But just kind of focusing on this one, I mean, this was as dreary as it gets. And we haven't really mentioned Dennis Allen yet, but I thought Dennis Allen's defense came very much ready to play. The Saints were completely smothered for the first 29 minutes of the game. They finally got going that last minute of the first half, but they just had nothing going. Running game, pass protection, just nothing.
Yeah, really dominated. I mean, you could see the physicality that the Bears were playing with. I mean, almost too much, right? I think the Saints' first 3 first downs were all because of penalties by the Bears defense on either, holding or, personal foul calls. That some of them I thought were a little shaky, to be honest with. Yeah, they came to play. I was wondering if Chicago might be a little, complacent in this game, having had a big win on Monday night, but that wasn't the case. It almost felt like they were inspired to play for DA in that game. I'm sure he got a game ball for that one. I'm sure it felt good to him. They sacked Rattler 4 times. He was able to elude a couple of potential sacks as well. So just a dominant effort. I mentioned the 44 rushing yards. Alvin Kamara ends up averaging 2.5 yards a carry. The Saints' longest run in the whole game was a 7-yard run by Kendre Miller, which happened early before Miller got hurt. Just not good enough in any phase, really, of offensive execution.
Yeah. I think. Sorry, I got an ad playing in the background here. I think you're right. And Kendre Miller, he may have gotten hurt on that play. That was the only time he touched the ball all day. So that storyline was really defeated right away, where he's, we thought we might see the Kendre Miller revenge game. Never happened. Turns into.
Yeah, hold on just a second, Zach. I lost you.
I don't think Jeff can hear me, but as he figures that out, the Kendre Miller revenge game just kind of goes by the wayside, and it becomes the DA revenge game. So it's just not a thing. Oh, and now I've muted myself for a second. We're all sorts of problems.
Yeah, I'm good now.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I got you now. I just had a short in my mic. I apologize.
No problem. As far as the Saints defense, they held the Bears to a lot of field goals, but that's about the only thing you can say about them. They did force one early turnover. Quincy Riley got his first career interception, so that's a positive. But that's about it, man. I mean, when Chicago wanted to move the ball and soak up clock, they did it. They did it at the end of the game. They did it throughout the game. 222 yards on the ground. This, quite frankly, looked like it did at the end of last year sometimes.
Yeah, that's a season high by far for the Bears running the ball on the ground. I think DeAndre Swift and uh, the rookie Kyle, what's his name, Manange?
Manon guy, yeah.
Manange I think he had a career high over 80 yards. They were gashing the Saints on the ground. The Saints have been fairly solid in run defense all year, but they really struggled. And some of this starts to happen, Zach. This is what you start to see happen when losses start piling up. Morale kind of goes down. The effort kind of goes down. You start seeing these kind of performances. And I worry that this thing's going to start getting away from them now because of the difficulty of the schedule. You're looking at a 1-6 start, the first 1-6 start by the Saints since '99, the Mike Ditka era. It's just pretty bleak right now, and we've talked about it before. The Saints have been healthy, and they have been playing clean football up until this point. And then today they get injured a little bit, and they have a bunch of turnovers, and you can see how this team just doesn't have that margin for error to overcome anything like that.
Yeah, I do want to shout out Stephon. He does mention Chase Young. I thought had a good game also. He was in the backfield a lot, especially early in the game. So that is one positive as we sort of seek for them in this game. But
Granderson played well too. Granderson continues to have a good season.
And the two drives before and after halftime were legitimately two of the best drives we've seen from this team. Rattler hits Olave deep and then finds him for the touchdown right before half. Then he marches the Saints right down the field and finds Olave for another touchdown right after half. Like Chris Olave, was good to see that. Yet those were three of his 5 catches, I guess, right there, and the other 2 were short. So he didn't do much outside of those 2 drives, just like the Saints offense in general. But it is good to see him kind of put on his wide receiver 1 shoes.
I think they took advantage of a couple of drop coverages there, one of them in particular for Olave, but they needed that at that time, man. I mean, they gained 4 total yards on their first 5 possessions. And like I said, the only first downs they got were by penalties. So it was good to see them kind of get some mojo and momentum, but they just couldn't sustain it. And, there just wasn't enough consistency. I thought that, that penalty on the 3rd and 20 where they had the forward pass by Taysom Hill was just a killer because you could at least maybe get back in it there. And that just seemed to sap the life out of the Saints' comeback hopes.
Jeff, I not that we're done talking about today's game, but we're 2 weeks from the trade deadline now, 2 weeks from Tuesday, I believe. Where do you see this Saints organization going, in the next 2 weeks, as in terms of either planning for the future and getting rid of some big names and some veterans and just getting whatever you can, or are we not at that point?
I don't think we're there yet. I mean, I think they should consider everything. If you have a really good offer that's going to help your future, I mean, I don't know what the odds are of 1-6 making the playoffs, but I'd say it's probably, pretty minuscule. So I think the goal for the rest of the year is going to be to find out what you have in a lot of these young players, who's going to be a part of your core going forward. But they've got to somehow try to thread the needle and be competitive. They've got guys like, DeMario Davis and Cam Jordan, Alvin Kamara, some of their veteran guys that certainly want to keep trying to win. So you can't just completely throw in the towel. It's a difficult kind of balancing act that he's going to have to manage as a head coach. And I think Kellen Moore and his staff have got to get a little bit better. I mean, we've kind of all given them the, rookie head coach, new staff hall pass, but, they didn't really bring it today. I didn't think as a coaching staff. I thought they got out-coached by the Bears in almost every facet. And at some point, they got to start getting past some of that and get a little more creative if they're going to try to kind of keep the confidence level high, not only from the locker room, but also from the fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the Taysom Hill lateral to Alvin Kamara or almost lateral. Like, that was a sign of Kellen Moore kind of reaching into his bag and saying, let's take a chance in a big moment. And it almost worked. I'm still not sure how they found enough evidence to overturn that play, but you see these moments of spark for the Saints, and then you just go down to a stretch of 5, 6, 8, 10 plays where you go, man, the other team is just way better than these guys.
Right. And the Bears, frankly, I don't think are that good. I really don't. I know I sound like I say that every week, but their passing offense was abysmal today. I mean, they really struggled. They ran the ball well, and they were, the beneficiaries of a bunch of takeaways. But that game should have been put away a long time ago, and they were misfiring right and left. And Caleb Williams did not impress me at all. I think his passer rating was 61.7. So that's a team that's a winnable, beatable team there. And the Saints just self-inflicted wounds. I think I put in the file I just posted on NOLA.com, Zach. They've now been outscored 68-16 in the first quarter and 141-72 in the first half. So they've basically been doubled in the first half. I mean, you're not going to win any games in the NFL playing catch up at that rate. And it's just, the game is all of a sudden controlled immediately by the opponent, and the Saints are trying to play catch up. And, sometimes they can put together these drives like they did in this game, but you're lots of times passing against, a conservative defense that's playing deep, and you're kind of letting them get yards and chunks and stuff like that. But it's a little bit of fool's gold to me. That catch-up ball, I'm not falling into that trap of believing they're close. I think this team's a long way away, and I think their record reflects it.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot this week, where, if you fall behind, the final product in terms of how many points you lost by and how many yards you were outgained by, and those things only mean so much. Like because good NFL teams and even not great NFL teams will just manage the game on you. And we saw that a little bit today. Once the Bears were up 20-0, as soon as they felt threatened at 20-14, they went down and scored right away.
Happened in the London game today is a perfect example of that. Rams got up 21-0. I think Lawrence ended up with like 300 yards passing. You know what I mean? Like the stats looked like he had a good game. They were giving him underneath all day long and letting him drive up and down the field, swapping yards for time. That's how the league works. You can't fall into that trap of, we're close, we're just a play away, when you're every game behind by double digits almost right off the bat.
Yeah, and the Saints, even in the game they won against the Giants, they were behind 14-3. I mean, it's every week they find themselves down double digits, and today was obviously no exception. And even with that, they only ended up with 253 yards of offense, only 44 on the ground themselves. We mentioned Kendry Miller was hurt. Alvin Kamara looks like he kind of comes in and out of really, really competing. I hate to put it that way, but there's plays where it looks like he's kind of, especially in pass protection, like he's not quite all there focus-wise. And I just, you wonder how ugly this could get.
Yeah, that's been a problem for AK the last few years. Pass protection, not a strength. I don't know if it's focus or he's just not good at it. But, a few years back, they had to basically bring him out of that role and use Jamal Williams in there. I think it was 2 years ago. And that might happen again if he keeps whiffing like he is. I mean, he's just a veteran player and as smart a player as Alvin Kamara. They have to be better there because that was really giving even more, I think, making it more difficult for Spencer Rattler. And I'm not making excuses for Rattler. At some point he's got to start delivering, but it's not easy when you're leading, your leaders, team leader, veteran presence back there in the backfield is not holding up his end of the bargain as pass protection. I know he's a running back and he's probably not paid to be a pass protector, but that's part of his job, and he's got to get better at that.
Yeah, it was ugly at times, and you're right. Like Rattler, there's been some comments he's running for his life and all this stuff. Yes, but you also saw Caleb Williams running for his life, and he didn't have a great day, but he also didn't turn the ball over 4 times. And there are so many problems that we can talk ourselves in circles on this with what is the biggest. And I think you say this all the time, fans want there to be a simple fix. And the point is right now with this Saints team, there is no simple fix because there's a lot of stuff that's broken.
Yeah, the roster's a long way away from being competitive in the NFL. And, you've got very little middle class on this roster. It's like older vets, they're the kind of the team leaders, and you got all these younger players that are being forced into action. They're inexperienced. But what you're missing are those kind of mid to late 20 players in their primes. I guess Olave is probably one of the closer guys to that, and Carl Granderson. But you're missing that kind of middle 28-year-old player that's been in the league a while, knows what to expect, and is in his physical and mental prime. And that's probably attributable to some failed drafts and some misses there. And this is where you're at with this roster. And I think we're starting to see, we oftentimes here in New Orleans like to kind of be provincial and be a little skeptical of the outside noise or criticism. I think the national media was right on this team. I do think this roster is one of the worst in the NFL, and I think we're seeing that play out right now because this team is healthy, one of the healthiest teams in the league, and they're still not really able to be very competitive.
Yeah, you want to see this get really bad, throw in some injuries. Like we'll have to see what Eric McCoy's status is next week and things like that. But that was really the problem last year when Dennis Allen was the head coach. Not excusing Allen from anything, but this year you can't use that as an excuse. So maybe it will open some eyes, maybe it won't. We are watching the Saints Insider postgame show. We are awaiting Luke Johnson, Matt Paras, and Rod Walker from the friendly confines of Soldier Field, where they will join us after talking to the Saints. Let us know what their attitude was like. Just to kind of go through some stats. 23-16 Bears in first downs. But it's interesting. Rushing first downs was 13-3 Bears, and 4 of the Saints' 16 first downs were via penalty. In fact, I think it was their first 4 of their first 5, I think, were via penalty. So just not good stuff. Saints only run 53 plays. They did not keep the ball. Only 23 minutes and 41 seconds of possession. That partially is because of the 4 turnovers. Only ran for 44 yards on 17 attempts and only passed it for 209. On the flip side, you give up 386, including 222 on the ground, an average of 5.6 yards per rush. I just don't. Overall, you get outgained 5.8 to 4.8 yards per play, and you commit 4 turnovers, only get 1 of them yourself. I'm surprised they only lost by 12, Duncan.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think the Bears were sloppy themselves and really kind of prevented them from putting that game away much earlier than it should have been. I think the other stat that stood out to me, Zach, was time of possession. The Bears had 36 minutes to 23 and change for the Saints. Really dominated ball control. Saints really struggled to, and they've done a good job of that by and large this season of controlling the ball, putting together long drives and kind of keeping their defense off the field. And that was not the case today. It seemed like the Bears were on the field almost the whole game. It was reflected in the stats. And when you rush for a season low 44 yards and you give up a season high 222 yards, usually you're going to be in a lopsided loss. And I had this number. I'm trying to find it. Let me see if I got those rushing stats while you're here, because I wanted to bring that up just a second.
Yeah, Jeff is going to look that up. I do again a lot of comments here about Brian says the left tackle Banks didn't look good. I have to go back and watch to see individual linemen, but I will say the line in general I did not think looked good. There was not much space for the running game, not much space for Rattler back there. That makes things difficult, obviously. And I know Jeff's looking up the running game stat here.
Well, I was looking, I couldn't find it, but what I'll tell you about real quick is like the rushing stats as a team have gone down. I think I mentioned every week since that Buffalo game when, it really looked like they ran the ball well on Buffalo. And since then, it's been rough. I mean, they've gone down every week. I think, let's see.
I've got it for you here. They had 189 yards against Buffalo. That was in week 4. Then 88 yards against the Giants in a win, down to 73 last week against the Patriots, and then 44 today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going down significantly every single day.
Yeah, it's trending the wrong way. And now you got Kendre Miller hurt, who I actually was anticipating having a kind of a breakout game today, and he gets hurt, and we've known he's had injury problems in the past, so that's definitely not good when he was looking like one of the really impressive young bright spots on this offense.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Jeff, as we kind of spin it forward, the funny thing is the Saints actually haven't played a division game yet. 6 of their last 10 games are against the division starting next week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I just don't know. Tampa Bay is going to have a short week. They got to go to Detroit tomorrow night, and then they come here next week. But you keep saying this, and it's like we'll let you kind of sign off with that. I don't see a lot of signs that this is going to get better before it gets worse.
No, because I think these next two opponents are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I don't think Chicago is by any means, and I certainly don't think the Giants are either. So I think you're going to run into two very talented teams here that just the Saints, I think, will do well just to stay in the game with in both instances. So you could be looking very seriously at a 1-8 start, and that's going to be difficult, I think, morale-wise and motivation-wise to maintain any type of enthusiasm and to play with the energy and effort that this team needs to play with, Zach, because they're just not talented enough. They need to like out effort and out, execute teams to stay in the game. And if they start losing that, as we've seen in the past, these things start happening and snowball on you. I would say that I think the morale and stuff is good right now for a team that's 1-6. I bet it's better here than, say, Miami, if you will, or maybe Tennessee, who just fired their coach. But it could start to wane as the frustration mounts because everyone in that locker room works extremely hard. Coaching staff, they put in long hours. And when you don't get results, it's just natural to be disappointed and frustrated.
All right. He's Jeff Duncan, Times Picayune, NOLA.com columnist. You can read his work at NOLA.com/Saints. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Zach. Take care, buddy.
All right. We'll take Jeff off and add in live from Soldier Field. NOLA.com beat writer for the Saints, Matthew Paris. Matt, thanks for joining us. We were just talking about some vibes and how things are. You just talked to the Saints. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it was another game that they felt like they could have had, but wasn't competitive enough. And for this game, the turnovers were a big thing. The run defense was the worst it's been all season. And so anytime the Saints kind of make these strides in certain areas, it seems like they regress in others, and that's kind of been the theme of the season so far.
Yeah, 100%. You were in Chicago starting Wednesday. You got to talk to Dennis Allen a little on Thursday and some of the Bears players. DA obviously did not say a lot as far as, wanting to get some vengeance for being fired from New Orleans last year and things like that. I think this Bears defense was kind of playing with their pants on fire early in this game. Like it felt like behind the scenes there was some of that.
Yeah, I think they've started to do that the last few weeks. This was their fourth straight game with at least 3 turnovers. They're getting healthier as a unit, and I think they're really understanding Dennis Allen's defense now. That was kind of my takeaway from being in Chicago earlier this week is that, the Bears have had to adjust to Dennis Allen. He's a very demanding coach. He's intense. His schemes are pretty complex in terms of, especially on the defensive line, of how he wants guys to rush their passer and stay within the scheme when developing a pass rush plan. It's not necessarily that freedom as a pass rusher that some of these guys are used to having. And so that takes a little bit of time to develop, but it also puts them in position to make plays. Say what you want about Dennis Allen as a head coach. He's been a very successful coordinator.
Yeah, he has. And that was part of what was just a really dominant start to this game for the Bears, who it's funny to say that. And they actually are the first team in 5 weeks not to score back-to-back touchdowns on the Saints to open the game. But then Spencer Rattler, kind of the one thing that he hasn't done this year is let the turnover bug really hit. It did today. He fumbled, led to a Bears field goal on the Saints' first possession, and then he threw 3 interceptions, and each one of them really came at kind of a key moment in the game. And just we've seen him get away with some turnover-worthy plays throughout the season. Today, he did not.
Right. No, and you could just see him kind of forcing it like that. The one where he was trying to target Rashid Shaheed on that scramble drill, he tried to have Rashid Shaheed go deeper, but he signaled where he wanted to throw the ball, and the Bears read it all the way and were in perfect position to pick it off. But with the Saints being in the deficit that they were, he tried to kind of will the Saints back in the game, but he's just not – I don't think he's as talented as a quarterback to be able to get away with those sorts of things, and the Bears took advantage.
Yeah, they did, and they led this game 20-0, 29 minutes in, and it just looked like the Saints might get completely run off the field. So we'll do a little bit of positive. Those two drives, one right before half and the one right after half, were really good. And Chris Olave made some big plays. He caught both touchdown passes. Rattler looked good. And it kind of reminds you that this team does have some pieces and they can compete and they haven't quit and things like that. It was just like it was almost a microcosm, the whole season, enough to keep you interested, but not enough to actually win the ball game.
Right. No, I mean, Chris Olave to have that response after he had last week with the drops, it was important for it to show it. This was his first multi-touchdown day, and it increases his price. Now, does it increase his price because the Saints are going to keep him, or does it increase his price on the trade market with other teams interested in acquiring him? And we had a chance to talk to Chris Olave after the game. He said that the Saints have approached him about a contract extension since the beginning of the season. Talk started to heat up. He said he still wants to prove that he's a top dog. So it doesn't necessarily, to me anyway, didn't sound like he was in a rush to sign an extension based on where things are at. And in terms of, the trade, he said that he's very confident that they've had great communication. But I asked him to clarify if him being very confident meant that, he's very confident he's not being traded anywhere. And he kind of didn't go as far to answer that. So I think that's a situation that still bears monitoring, even as the Saints try and get a deal done with this contract.
Yeah, because the connected to that discussion is the fact that, as you said, the trade deadline is coming up. It's in two weeks from Tuesday, and the Saints will have some decisions to make. Like, they are a 1-6 football team that will be a significant underdog each of the next 2 weeks against Tampa Bay, and then on the road at the LA Rams in week 9. And you're probably looking at a team that's 1-8 at the end of October, barring a big upset. So this is, this is the point in the season where we start to shift from wins and losses to who looks good and who's part of the future.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you saw it today with, again, them throwing at Danny Stutzman a little bit there. It was encouraging that Quincy Riley had his first career interception, but, it's to win some of these games, as young as the Saints are on certain sides of the ball, that they've all got to come together and play better than they have been.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We are visiting with Matthew Paris live from the Soldier Field press box there in Chicago after the Saints' 26-14 loss to the Chicago Bears here on the Saints Insider post-game show. On the defensive side of the ball, Matt, what did you make of things over there? You held Chicago to 4 field goals in the red zone, which is always a good thing. But ultimately, when they needed to get stops, they couldn't get them. They gave up a ton of rushing yards. Just sort of a lot of weak links on that D.
Yeah, the run defense is the most confusing part of this defense to me. Is it good? Is it not? It wasn't good today. They shut down the Patriots last week. The Giants had a nice game. The Buffalo Bills ran wild. And so it's just a very inconsistent unit from week to week. And so that's the thing. When that's not going, like, the Bears are really able to extend drives based on that, because Caleb Williams, give credit to him, he was able to extend drives with his mobility a little bit, or just elusive avoiding sacks, but he didn't exactly light the world on fire with his passing performance. So that run game really fueled their offense, and it really prevented the Saints, I think, from getting as many chances to try and force a comeback.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Matt. As we wait on Rod and Luke, what are your final thoughts on this one? We kind of crawl toward the midway point of this season, and things are about as bad for the Saints as maybe a lot of people expected them to be.
Yeah, it's tough right now. I mean, I think the big questions, the things we didn't hit on, were the Eric McCoy injury. I mean, I think that's really going to be significant for them if he has to miss extended time. And what Kellen Moore, Luke will have more about this, but what Kellen Moore said after the game, it did not sound encouraging on that front. And we saw what happened to this offense when he wasn't in there last year. And this is a unit already struggling to move the ball a little bit. So if he has to miss significant time here, I think that's a huge loss for them.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And I think I forget, I got an ad playing again in the background. Too many tabs open on this on this Sunday. So he's Matthew Paris. We're going to let him go as we're about to hook up with Luke Johnson here live from Chicago. But you can read Matt's work at NOLA.com/.
Thank you.
All right. There's Matt. And now bringing on our other Saints beat writer, Luke Johnson. Not to be mistaken for Mike Ditka. I know that the Bears made that mistake. One of the Bears stadium associates there made that mistake at Soldier Field, or just kind of poke fun at you for it. But Luke, what are your initial thoughts on this one? Bears 26, Saints 14. I think I've got you on mute. Hang on one second.
All right, there we go. You got me good?
All right, you're a little choppy, but I think we got you.
Let me try to take my headphones out. Okay.
Okay.
Got me better?
Yeah, that's a little better, I think.
Okay. Yeah, this is the magic of doing a post-game show from the stadium. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of look, the first half of that game, I mean, they just got completely dominated, right? It got basically nothing going offensively. They had 4 net offensive yards their first 5 drives. They got bailed out a couple times by the Bears with some kind of ticky-tack penalties, but weren't able to get anything going. And finally, you hit the big play to Chris Olave. It seems to open some things up, but they just couldn't really turn it into anything after that. I mean, the fact is that if you turn the ball over 4 times in a football game, like you are more often than not going to win those games. And I think that's the reason that we saw this be one of the least competitive games that we've seen the Saints play this year, because they've done a pretty good job up to this point of taking care of the football. I mean, they doubled their season turnover output today. At 4 coming into this game and 4 in this game. And you can't just say like, well, you take those turnovers out, it's a different game. But like that's how they lost it today. I think Dennis Allen did a really good job with his pressure packages. He had a really hard time kind of containing whether it was defensive line or some blitzes off the edge. Running backs had a hard time picking up some of those blitzes, and it really just kind of had a cascading effect on the whole offense.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah, 100%. And it was bordering on getting really, really ugly. The Saints did come back and put together a nice 1-minute drive right before halftime, and then another one right out of the half. Again, kind of showing flashes, and Matt and I talked about this, like Chris Olave showing, hey, maybe I should be paid like a number 1 wide receiver. Maybe you should keep me around. I mean, that's an interesting subplot here. It faded back into the Bears just outplaying them in every facet after that. But those 2 drives, what did you make of that and how the offense looked there?
Well, I mean, they were connecting on explosives. Yeah, it wasn't just the 57-yarder to Chris Olave, which, like, by the way, classic Dennis Allen defense right there, right? Like, they have 1 minute and they've got like 80 yards to go, and they give up a 57-yard pass play, and it was just like a basic post, right? Yeah. With no safety help over the top. It's just like I feel like I've seen that movie over and over again. But it wasn't just that play. I mean, there was a 21-yard touchdown to Olave. There was a 28-yard catch and run for Juwan Johnson. They were like a 13-yarder to Rashid Shaheed, which just like very rarely we see a lot of that out of this team. It's a lot of dink and dunks, and like you can see when the downfield passing game gets going, like there's more stuff there for this offense. But they weren't able to run the ball against this defense, and even if maybe they would have been able to establish it later in the game, but once you get into a 20-0 hole, like you're kind of just stuck in one mode of offense. So I just think it's going to be hard to lean on that explosive passing game. Like you want to see more of it, but like if you're counting on that to get your offense going, it's just like it's going to be tough, just especially with the way defenses play in 2025 in the NFL.
When we talk about Rattler and the turnovers, how does this change the conversation around that point we've all been talking about when you move to Tyler Shuck?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like Kellen Moore was asked about it today. Like, did he consider going to Shuck? And he said no. Does that like carry over into next week? Like, I mean, the reality is the Saints are 1-6. I mean, they are effectively out of the playoff picture already. We're not even at the half-point mark of the season. They're potentially going to be looking at like a top 5 draft pick next year, and you need to figure out who your quarterback's going to be. And if there's any doubt whatsoever in their mind about whether Spencer Rattler is the guy, there's any doubt, like they need to see what Tyler Shuck can do before they potentially commit to drafting a quarterback, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 overall. So like I don't know how much like necessarily this changed things. I think really the reality today was the Bears just cashed in on a lot of opportunities. We've seen Spencer make some turnover-worthy throws in the past that just other teams didn't make the plays on. I still think he's a pretty good quarterback. I think he's going to have a long career in the NFL. I don't know if I've seen enough to this stage to say like they need to build around him for the future. And if that's the case, like you need to see what Shuck can do if you're potentially going to be in the mix for a quarterback to be number 1 pick next year.
Yeah, no, 100%. It will happen sooner or later. Ron has a question here. Injuries to McCoy and Miller. What are the updates there, if anything, Luke?
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. I asked Kellen about both of those after the game, and he said, yeah, basically that there's a chance both of them miss some time, and I think it's potentially more serious for McCoy. But Kendrick kind of downplayed his injury to reporters after the game. It was a knee injury for him. It happened after his first carry of the game. He gained 7 yards, and he's off into the blue injury tent and almost immediately to the locker room after that. He said afterwards, it's not a big deal. I feel like I've heard that from players before, and they end up going on IR anyways. So we'll keep an eye out on that one. The McCoy one, though, I mean, that could potentially be season-ending if it is what they fear it is. Kellen Moore said after the game that there's a chance it's a bicep tear, and it's really, really hard to come back from something like that, especially playing that position. Where your grip is and your hands and your arms are. I mean, it's everything to what you're doing for your job. So yeah, that's one we're going to be keeping an eye on. They'll test it after they get back to New Orleans tonight. I'm sure they'll do additional tests tomorrow, but it could be potentially something that ends the season.
Yeah, that's a bad one for an offensive lineman for sure. If you just think about how you got to grab and hold on. All right, let's go big picture before we let you go, Luke. Obviously, another, on paper, a winnable game for the Saints. They don't get it done. They end up losing by double digits. Now they've got, a couple of playoff teams and really Super Bowl contenders in Tampa Bay and the LA Rams coming up the next 2 weeks. Where do they go from here? I mean, we're not talking about playoff contention or anything like that, but you do want to keep a locker room together and keep a team competitive, and at the same time maybe figure out what you want to do in the trade market. So what do you think the next steps are for the Saints team?
I mean, they got to be listening, right? Like they have to listen. Like it would have been really nice if Kellen Moore would have come in here and they had some pretty good pieces and they figured it out, and Spencer Rattler played well above his expectations, and the defense was pretty good with all those players that got on under Brandon Staley, and they were competitive this year. But like they're 1-6, and they're looking at the very real reality of 1-8 after these next couple of weeks. So I mean, they've got to, if they have a chance at something where they get a good deal. They got a good deal from Marshawn Lattimore last year. We've already seen the benefits from that. They got to listen. I think that is true about everybody on their roster. Because like they need to clearly do a pretty hard reset on this, because what they have right now is not even close to being good enough to be where they want to be. So and frankly, even some of these guys, like I think Chris Olave is a really good player. I've gone out and said like I don't know if he's a 1, and I still think that's true. I think he's a really good player though, and he could be really, really helpful for either whether it's Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck or another quarterback. But when you're talking about like the timeline, you're talking about paying a guy $25 to $30 million a year. And at that point, he'll be in his 6th NFL season by the time you're hoping you're competitive, or fifth going into a 6th, something like that. I don't know if that lines up, so if you can get a good deal for him, like I think you have to consider it. And I think that's true of everybody on this roster.
All right. Well, we had a good deal talking to Luke Johnson live from Soldier Field. We're going to let him get to writing. Again, you can find his stuff at NOLA.com/Saints. Thanks, Luke.
Cheers.
All right. Let Luke go. And I know Rod Walker is here. I'm just going to let him turn his camera on, and we'll see if we can get Rod to wrap us up here on the Saints Insider postgame show as the Saints lose 26-14 to the Chicago Bears. Look, it's a close. Let's see. Do we have Rod? It's pretty close to the way a lot of different things have gone in this season for the Saints, where you start slow, kind of come back, show some signs of promise, get into the final part of the game, and sometimes have a chance with the ball, sometimes not. And Rod's having just a few problems here. It says his device is not connected. We're going to see if he can get that going. But yeah, it's it's just not good enough, right? In the end. So Rod is going to try logging out and logging back in again. We're going to see if we can get him on to wrap up our post-game show. But certainly that news coming from the post-game locker room, the Saints fear that Erik McCoy could have suffered a season-ending injury. That is a game changer for this team and really for what expectations should be for Spencer Rattler, for Tyler Shuck if you bring him on, for the rest of this offense. I mean, we saw what happened last year when you had a more veteran team and how things went so far south from those first 2 games of the season against the Panthers and the Cowboys to what happened the rest of the season when McCoy went out. You can't just there's Rod. You can't just act like it's the same team or that it's all Erik McCoy, but yeah, clearly not the same team. So here's Rod live from Chicago, and Rod, your initial thoughts on another Saints loss?
Well, first of all, I couldn't get my laptop to work, so I'm on my phone. So can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
All right. Yeah, I just thought you look at the beginning of that game, Dennis Allen just, his defense came in and dominated the Saints, which we knew he had the potential to do that, and they were able to do it. And, I mean, they were dialed in that first half, and the Saints had no answers for them. And that's kind of, I don't think we're surprised. Anybody who's been around Dennis Allen, we knew his defenses can be like that, and that's what they did today.
Yeah, I mean, it looked for a while like the Bears might win this game 46-0, like 1985 style.
Yeah, for sure. And there were times when I was like, okay, if Dennis Allen's going to be trying to get the shutout in this game, and then, obviously the Saints got a good drive going and finally got a little momentum going. But yeah, it was just one of those games where you could kind of tell that they were really locked in.
And the Saints did kind of wake up, score a couple of touchdowns. I mean, maybe catch the Bears relaxing a little bit there at the end of the first half, and then come out and get another one, make this a 20-14 game. But on the other side of the ball, like ultimately Spencer Rattler just made too many mistakes in this one. And he got punished for his mistakes, which I think had not happened every time earlier this year.
Yeah, this is a team that, we've talked about it all year long. The Saints have a very small margin for error. And, this team's not going to beat anybody with that many turnovers. They're just not built that way. Most teams aren't going to – you're not going to win many games when you turn the ball over 4 times. So they were just kind of playing behind the 8 ball and just could never catch up. And, you look at this game, the Bears did dominate it. The way they were just gashing through the Saints run defense, which was, it's kind of surprising to see that. Coming to the game, the Bears were the 31st worst rushing defense, but today the Saints looked like they were the 31st worst rushing defense.
Dare I say it looked like last year's Dennis Allen rushing defense. Kind of ironic, but the black and gold ends up being at the short end of both of those. Some positives, I thought Chris Olave looked good. Chase Young had his moments. I don't know. It's the same old story because you see flashes. It's not like the team has just dominated every quarter of every game, but ultimately not good.
Yeah, Chase Young, 14 and a half sacks away, man, for 15. That's been my prediction for the people who don't know what I'm talking about. But the last 2 years about Chase Young just racking up all these sacks. But I thought Olave had a really good game. He needed a good game to bounce back like that. And, just kind of talking to him in the locker room after the game, he kind of talked about how he wants to show, he wants to kind of prove himself. And this is definitely a step in the right direction. I try not to put too much into one game because, last week we were talking about how he's not the guy, and this week he was the guy. But you just got to see him stack these games like this together. That's what a number one receiver is, a guy who can continue to, put those kind of games together.
And I also think it's not just one game. He had 3 big catches in this game. Other than that, I think he had 2 catches for 8 yards or something like that. And that's not to take those away. Obviously, the big plays are what matters, but he he still feels like he's not maybe consistent enough. And just in general, this offense doesn't feel like it's consistent enough. And to that point, Rod, this news we get about Eric McCoy and possibly being out for the season is not going to make things easier going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened last year when Eric McCoy got hurt in that Philadelphia game on the first drive, and that's kind of when the season fell apart for the Saints. Obviously, they had some other injuries too, but Eric McCoy is, I talked to Alvin about him and talked to Cesar Ruiz about him. And, I mean, he's obviously the anchor of that offensive line, and, he's walking out of the locker room, his arm was in a sling, so I don't think it's good. Kellen Moore hinted that it wasn't good, so it's a really big blow for this offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And with that said, it's just another layer to this Rattler Shuck discussion. I mean, our comment section's going wild with people saying it's time to see what we have in Tyler Shuck. It's time to, end the Rattler experiment, all those sorts of things. Where are you at with that discussion? The Saints have a bye week coming up in 3 weeks from today. They've got 2 tough games before that. Actually, I'm sorry, 3 tough games before the bye week, if you include Carolina as a tough game. But where do you come down on that discussion?
Yeah, I think, this was the 7th game of the season. I think you let Rattler go through these next 2, maybe even that 3rd one, and then maybe get Shuck ready out there. Because I don't want to just see Shuck play at the very end of the season. He needs to play in some games against some teams that are, playing for something. I don't want to see him in a game against a team that's sending their starters out in week 16 and 17. That's basically preseason. So you do want to see him. And I asked Kellen Moore today that he considered putting him in today, and he said he didn't think of it. He didn't even consider it. And I don't think it would have been a smart move to put Tyler Shuck out there to feed him to Dennis Allen the way that defense was playing. So I wouldn't have done that anyway. But I do think at some point you got to see him. But I thought Rattler had a bad game today for the most part. And but I'm not going to dismiss everything he's done for the first 6 weeks of the season. So I think you can maybe a couple more weeks, but the wins probably aren't going to happen anyway. But maybe a couple more weeks. But eventually we got to see Shuck in some meaningful game.
Yeah, you've just got to see what you have. That may be the first time in recorded history that the phrase "feed him to Dennis Allen" has been uttered. But Rod Walker got it done. So, and I agree with you. By the way, this Bears defense was ferocious today, and the Saints couldn't put up with it. Offensive line, running game, Rattler, all of it was pretty bad outside of those 2 drives. So let's wrap up here, Rod. Again, up next, the Saints have the Bucs, then the Rams, then the trade deadline, the Panthers, and the bye week. That's really the next month coming up for us. What are you looking forward to seeing and curious about how the Saints kind of approach this next month?
I think the main thing for me is, and I talked to a lot of guys in the locker room today, and just where do y'all go from here? And to their credit, I've seen the team when they've been defeated and down and out, and they still have not quite got to that point yet. And I think it's just because they've played so many games where they keep them just close enough to make you think that they may be okay. And I think the players kind of buy into that, but they just kind of want to see if they can ever string a consistent 4 quarters together, which they just have not done all season long. I think they feel like they can still do that, but at the end of the day, this team is not very good. This is who they are. They're 1-6. They're going to be 1-8 in 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure. So they just gotta, they gotta just keep grinding and let these younger guys, get some reps and get some experience. But this is what happens when the team's going through a rebuild. This is what a rebuild kind of looks like, and it just kind of maybe hit some people quicker than we thought it would. But this is where they are, and that's just it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave with this. We just got some video from the Bears locker room that the Bears team account posted, and here is the quote from Dennis Allen posted by Luke. Dennis Allen gets a game ball and then said this to the team, quote, "Sometimes the good Lord just has a frickin' plan for you that you don't know about. Sometimes you ain't good enough for somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. I love being here." Your quick thoughts on that, Rod?
I hope it doesn't turn out like sometimes you got to pop out and show them, which was his quote last year. But that's I think Dennis Allen's a guy that he feels like he's in a good spot and things are going well for him. He got he's latched on with a really good head coach, and he's going to do some good things here in Chicago. He's a heck of a defensive coordinator, so I wouldn't take anything away from him. And that's what you need in this league. And the Bears are going to have a tough defense.
Yeah, no doubt. And to the winner go the spoils, so he can talk the noise now, I guess.
Yeah, he should.
All right, Rod Walker, you can read his column coming up at NOLA.com/Saints, as well as the rest of our guys' stuff they produce from this game. Thanks, Rod. All right, that's Rod Walker, and we are going to wrap up. We've been with you for an hour now here on the Saints Insider Postgame Show. Once again, your final score, the Chicago Bears 26, the New Orleans Saints 14. My thanks to Jeff Duncan for hanging out first, then Luke Johnson, Matthew Paris, and Rod Walker for joining us live from Chicago. And of course, thanks to all of you. Got a ton of comments rolling in. Love to have all of that interaction. And I know there's a lot of frustration and a lot of wondering about what the future holds for this New Orleans Saints team and franchise. We will continue to cover it every week, every day at NOLA.com. You can check out the next Saints Insider episode on Wednesday. We don't care if this team is 1-6. We are going to be with you twice every week, every Wednesday, every Friday, and then post game every Sunday that there is a game. So once again, thank you for watching the Saints Insider postgame show. I'm Zach Ewing, and we will talk to you next time.